Kathy, everybody's muted there, so you have to ask them.
And so then I think you should remember everybody to turn the mic on and wait a second. So there's a little bit of a delay and you should start talking. Perfect. And then make sure you turn your microphone off, otherwise you'll get feedback.
And then video guys out again, it won't work. Right. And then people will blame you. Right. I mean, you as in me. Right.
You got it.
I'm learning.
I just can't see from here. You gotta set my binoculars.
Okay, everyone, 6 o'clock. I'm going to get started with the Canada Town Board meeting on August 17th, 2020. Everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Karen, please be leading.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Can everyone, I see that delay. Can everyone hear me? Lisa, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Gary Davis.
Present.
Councilwoman Linda Dorczak,
Present.
Councilman Terry Natalie,
Present.
Supervisor Kathy Minnicott,
Present.
Councilman Jerry Simpson.
Present.
Lisa, can you please confirm that the meeting is properly advertised?
Yes, it was.
Okay, we have written communications, I think, are somewhere. At the front desk. If anyone would like a copy of the agenda, because we're not able to put it up on the board, there's copies there as well. It tracks down the communications as well.
I guess it's in the center conference. We'll verify.
I'd like to take a moment to wish the following town employees a very happy birthday in the coming cycle. August 21st, Ryan Stachak. August 22nd, Gary Davis, happy birthday. August 27th, Michelle Rollinson. August 30th, Scott Kessel. September 10th, Tina Bloom. September 12th, Larry Tyler. September 16th, me. September 19th, Jeff Winter. Happy birthday to everyone. Okay, we have our first privilege of the floor coming up. For those of you who don't know me, Kathleen Minnicott. I'm town supervisor. This is the town board. If you would like to be heard, you have 3 minutes. I'm going to read the actual rules for you. If you'd like to be heard on the Squaw Island resolution, we're going to take comment on that after whatever presentation we have. So if you want to wait for that, that's fine. You can do it now. So I'm reading from the actual rules, and I'm sorry, there's feedback. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public shall have the right to address the board during the privilege of the floor portion of the town board meeting. On request, a member of the audience may address the town board on a matter of public concern. Time allotted for addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes unless the supervisor has granted prior approval. You have 3 minutes to speak. The use of racial, ethnic, or homophobic slurs, lewd, obscene, threatening, abusive, or profane language will not be tolerated. Speakers who violate this rule will have their time immediately revoked and will be asked to leave the meeting. I hope I won't have to do that, and we never have had to do that, but just so everyone knows and doesn't take it personally, 3 minutes. Anyone wish to be heard with this privilege on the floor?
I would like to be heard.
Okay. May I ask who that is?
Hi, this is Nancy Yaki,
Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
and I had written an email after Thursday's races at the Land of Legends Raceway. I want to know if you had received my emails.
Yes, I have.
Okay, and wondered if you were going to take that into consideration in your further discussions about the raceway, and if I could be included on any committees that will be meeting on the raceway and any plan of action.
So our conversation still continues. As you heard from Chris Mather last time, we have certain restrictions with regard to the racetrack, with regard to prior lawful uses and what we can do with that. Still working on it. We got your communication and we'll continue to work on that. And I'll certainly take note that you would like to be involved in that process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to be heard? Okay, seeing no hands. We have no priority business. That's right. Next, we have presentations. Squaw Island, New York State DEC Fish and Wildlife Management Unit, located in Canandaigua Lake in the town of Canandaigua. Mr. Edward Randolph, I see you on the line. You'd like to give a presentation?
I believe I made my statement last time in a written form, but I just want to list off a few tribes that have given their opinion on this matter. So I'll just list off if I could. And I apologize, I probably will butcher some of these names here. The Lakota tribe, the Aroostook tribe, Penobscot tribe, the Aragon Umatilla Indian Reservation, the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the Cree Free Nation, the Washoe tribe, the Shenkook Indian Nation, the Mishawpi Nation, Yagoo Indians, the Crow tribe, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. In addition, there has been 2 states that have banned the use of the term, Montana and Maine, along with the American Bird Society that have agreed to rename a duck by the similar name of long-tailed duck. And that's all.
Thank you. And just to clarify for everyone, people involved in this presentation do not have the 3-minute limit. It's public speakers. Is Mr. Peter Jensen available? Okay, I don't see him on the line. If he comes in, we'll hear from him. We do have communication from him in the form of emails, which are available for anyone who wishes to see. Next on the list, we have Dr. Joe Stallman. Are you here? Again, I don't see him on the line or joining us. Again, we have communication from Dr. Stallman previously. Dr. David Witt, I did see you.
Yes, I'm here.
Like to speak on this issue.
I can just repeat what I said last time, which was that DEC supports the renaming efforts, that we are prepared to send a letter of support signed by the commissioner to USGS once someone from the local community begins that process asking for that renaming of the geographic entity of the island itself. When it comes to the administrative aspect of it, that unique management area, we will rename that so that it matches the new name that's decided upon. I understand that Pete Jemison has suggested the name Skano, which is Seneca for peace. It's a traditional greeting, and that Joe Stallman said that that's a good idea. So it's our understanding, it's DEC's understanding that people would support Skano for the name, and that we would be using that, that we would be writing the letter supporting that.
Thank you. I don't think we have anyone else planned to speak. Is there anyone? I'll let the board members speak after. Anyone from the public wish to be heard, or would you want to be heard now? Terry, I was clear. Oh, I thought you wanted to speak now.
Well. You gotta turn yours off and you gotta do it at the same time.
Yeah, Dr. Witt, I wanted to ask you about what is the actual process for, renaming, this area? I mean, stepwise, what would be involved in doing that?
I'm actually just pulling up the USGS website right now, and I can share that later on after the meeting, but basically there's a form that gets submitted, and it seems pretty easy, to be honest. I'm just trying to pull that up right now. You mark which action, which would be to propose the new name. You give the recommended name, the state, the location, the geographic location, so the specific area that's covered, and this form asks for a latitude and longitude, the type of feature, which would be the island, and then it's like description, and then it asked for like any maps or other sources that use the recommended name. It's not, I don't believe that there's anything at this point that uses the recommended name. However, you could go in there and discuss the history of the name as it stands and how you would like to rename it and the reason to. If it's, to my understanding, other areas, other geographic entities have been renamed because of less than polite names, and that there's no real delay or opposition to that when it comes to USGS reviewing those applications. And it needs to be signed by an individual. It asks for a title, so if this is someone from the town board that would be willing to do that, then maybe that would work. But if it's an individual, I don't see why there's anything wrong. And then it lists, there's a section in there for authorities for recommended name. And this seems to be like other individuals that need to be reached out to, the mayor, the town supervisor, so on. It's only a couple of pages, and then you basically fax it or scan it in to the address, and that, to be honest, is the extent of my knowledge of that process. When it comes to DECs, then it's just an administrative action. I believe it would have to go to public comment for like 30 days, but it shouldn't be that onerous for us.
Is there a particular individual though that makes the call, that makes the decision, or is it a committee, a group? Who pulls the trigger?
The bureaucratic body is the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, and that's a group from USGS, so the U.S. Geological Service. And I'm trying to see who their membership is. They have a chair by the name of Tara Wallace, a vice chair by Marcus Alsop, and these look like that they're various members from federal government agencies, National Geospatial Intelligence, U.S. Forest Service, National Oceanic and Atmospheric. So they look to be pretty much all government agencies. And then there's some advisory committee members from National Science Foundation, USGS, NOAA, so on.
Sounds like quite a large group of people that has to review this and make a decision. You mentioned that there would be a public comment period. How does that work? I mean, what would that be, some kind of hearing that would be held in our area for like the greater Canandaigua area and the Seneca Nation and other concerned individuals? Or
well, let me clarify myself. As to my understanding, there would be. I can't speak for certain whether or not there is. If there is a public comment period, then we would place the notice in the environmental notice bulletin, which is on our website, the DEC's website, and then we would just receive public comments via email or by letter. Usually we allow for a phone call as well, but something like this probably would just be email, that we wouldn't do a public hearing or anything like that, because to my knowledge, this is the first time we've done something like this, so I don't believe there's any regulations or anything that's specific to that.
you mentioned that there was a piece of property or something in the Buffalo area where the name was changed. And how did that work? I mean, was there any public forum at all for people to speak to it, or was that prior to your involvement? Or
to be honest, that was between the city of Buffalo, and I'm not sure what process they undertook for that. DEC wasn't involved on that one.
Do you have any idea of how long this particular island has carried this name?
No, I'm not aware of that.
No idea how it actually came about, I guess. They're old enough to know. So.
I've heard the oral history that's accompanied the name, that it was used as a refugee for women and children during the Sullivan campaign during the Revolutionary War, and that is where the particular name came from. But other than that, I'm not sure if there's another history or anything like that that's provides a reason for that name.
Can you speak at all to whether the state of New York was involved in, claiming being that island carries this name? I mean, right now, there's a various state agencies and USGS, different people that would be involved. Not knowing how long it's actually carried this name, I don't know if the actual assignment of the name predated any of the, agencies, groups that are concerned now. Any knowledge in that area at all?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have any knowledge on that. Given that DEC was formed 1970, I believe, and then before that it was from another government body. It seems to me that the name existed prior to the establishment of DEC.
And since that time, it was just accepted as such and never challenged by DEC or any other state agency.
To my knowledge, no, but it's in a situation like this, as names get to be reinterpreted and that as communities members rise up and say that this is actually an offensive name, then we welcome the opportunity to work with community on it and rename it something more appropriately.
Okay, well, that's all I have at this time, so I'll relinquish the remainder of my time.
Anyone else in the audience wish to be heard in that town? Go ahead, sir. Yes, ma'am. You can step up to the microphone if you want. Sure.
Please ask them to turn the microphone on.
Please turn the microphone on.
Timed this today, so I'm working hard to stay here for 3 minutes.
Turn the microphone on. Should be a button in front of you.
Good evening, board. I'm Diana Sherry. I've lived 22 years at East Saddleback Road, and I moved to this area in 1974. I'm retired after 17 years as a peace officer in the county and state. Addressing this resolution, the initiator of this action, Mr. Randolph, admitted to me he is a resident of Hopewell, which is not within the town of Canandaigua. Wouldn't appear prudent or nor respectful that a citizen, not even a resident of the town of Canandaigua, petition the town board for a resolution this impactful on a town of which one is not even a citizen or resident, rather. The representatives of both the Assemblyman Kolb and Senator Helming's offices expressed marked concern to me when I brought this fact to them when I spoke with them last week. Of note, on June 10th of this year, Mr. Randolph pens an email to the town supervisor asserting, quote, "It has become a bit of a discussion regarding the name place of Squaw Island. I know after long discussions that my community has a united understanding in changing the horrible misunderstood history of this island." However, it was the very same day that Mr. Randolph initiated a Facebook post on Canandaigua Chronicles, a site not necessarily available to residents of the town unless they requested to join. It was an item for discussion. Is it time to have a serious discussion on Squaw Island? The timing of these two events is essentially simultaneous. So how could there have been quite a bit of discussion? And I know after long discussions that my community has a united understanding. Recall, Mr. Randolph is not of the town of Canandaigua community. So to which community is he referring? Mr. Randolph had no supporting evidence as of June 10th to sustain his assertions, which ultimately led to the creation of this resolution. Conversely, however, there exists a change.org online petition, which as of this writing on the 14th, 577 respondents have signed indicating that they are against this resolution. Dr. Goddard of Harvard, who is a senior linguist emeritus of the Smithsonian, on the origin and meaning of the word squaw, states, in the writings of Massachusetts Indians, including a will written in the Massachusetts language by a native preacher from Martha's Vineyard, uses it to refer to his unmarried daughters. Massachusetts squaw was an ancient and thoroughly decent word. He states, it is as certain as any historical fact can be that the word squaw that the English settlers in Massachusetts used for Indian woman in the early 1600s was adopted by them from the word squaw, and that their Massachusetts-speaking neighbors used their own language to mean female, younger woman, and not the Mohawk version, OJISKWA.
Time's up. Give you 10 seconds to finish up.
I have some of those articles.
I did want to add that Mr. Bonanno, is that how you say your name?
Yes.
Provided that article that Ms. Sherry was speaking about, and you each have a copy of that article as well. Is that the article that you're talking about, Ms. Sherry?
Same article.
Same article, okay. Go ahead, if you would state your name for the record.
My name is Martin Bonanno. I live on County Road 32 in Canada. For over 31 years. Been a lifelong resident of Canandaigua, going on 63 years. Well, if you take a look at the article that I gave you on this first page, fourth paragraph, I've even given you the benefit of highlighting it. That gives you a complete history of the spelling of the word squaw, S-Q-U-A, and eventually it also appears, the word squaw appears in the Massachusetts Bible in Mark 10:6, translating female, and plural squagog, translating younger woman. Top of the next page, William Bradford, remember him, Mayflower, 30 years governor in Plymouth. He and Edward Slow and another gentleman, William Wood, all of the Plymouth area, all published articles in newsletters and newspapers going back to London about squaws. The completing claim is on the second paragraph there, which Diana referred to. Despite clear evidence, squaw comes from Algonquin woman. Mr. Goddard is an expert in the Algonquin language. That's why he is the linguistic senior interpreter at the Smithsonian Institute for American Indians. It is in their woman over and over again. Mohawk, Ojibwe, and the Iroquois is Otsikwa. The two different words. He comes in there, a certain historical fact that the word squaw, English settlers in Massachusetts, for the woman, the word squaw is female, younger woman, not Mohawk, Osikaka, which stands for, I put down female anatomy. You guys can read what it says there. I just know what kind of population we're going to be watching today. With the wrong shape, the wrong meaning, and used by people whom had no context. The resemblance that might be perceived between squaw and the last syllable of Mohawk word is coincidental. Such partial resemblances between words of different meanings in different languages are common and no significance. This is the guy who is an expert in the native languages. I'm not sure where the tribes are from, where Edward Randolph cited, but I'd like to know if they were local and if they knew Algonquin and the true meaning of squaw. What are we really doing here tonight? Are we judging the past of what maybe British and French fur trappers may have picked up from the Mohawk Indians and said in a negative way, used the wrong word? Or are we taking a look at the history of Canandaigua right now, where we have a treaty, the longest standing U.S. government treaty, Squaw Island? Marvin Rapp did a research on chosen place versus chosen spot. I was at the Rotary meetings. You wouldn't believe the arguments they had about how that all panned out. But we got what it meant. Chosen spot.
Thank you. Anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir. Come on up. State your name if you would.
Hello, sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Buck, and I spoke at last month's meeting. And I was all set to come in here tonight to engage in reducto ad absurdum. I mean, let's face it, the word he and she are trigger words at this point, okay? We recently had a stabbing and a shooting. We also have opioid problems and heroin, but the existential threat, the thing that keeps people up at night, is a name that has existed for over 200 years. And believe me, as a teenage boy, I can speak to, if it had a derogatory name, we would have found it out. Because, well, teenage boys are completely immature, and we would have done that, okay? And, I mean, despite, short of selling the naming rights and having Verizon Wireless Island, this issue is, with all due respect to the people on this committee, it's too huge. It needs to go on the ballot in November and let the people of Canandaigua vote. And please forgive me for not remembering your name. You're in the top row. Even he stated that not my phone. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, even I can project. Don't worry. Even he mentioned a reinterpreting of the name. At this point, we're messing with Canandaigua's history. Okay. And something this big, let me state it again, it needs to go on the ballot. Okay, with all due respect. Oh, and the Cree are from Georgia, the Lakotas, I believe, are in the Midwest. They're not Canandaiguans. Sorry about it. Okay, I have no right to tell Cohocton, as a resident of Canandaigua, that Cohocton needs to change its name. I have no right, nor do I have the authority to demand that anybody else acquiesce to my wishes. I can complain all I want, but I just don't have that right, nor do I have that authority as a non-resident. Okay? I do hope you will consider my suggestion of putting it on the ballot. This is too huge. The Facebook traffic from Canandaigua Chronicle, there was the change.org that was mentioned. There was also a survey put on Facebook, also on Canandaigua Chronicle. This is near and dear to the heart of Canandaiguans. Our history, we are proud of our history. And if some people infer, that means they infer. That never means there was intent. All right? SWA has never meant that to any Canandaiguan. Believe me, I know. I have also lived here my entire life. So please consider my suggestion about putting it on the ballot in November and letting the people of Canandaigua decide what Canandaigua's future will be.
Anyone else on Zoom or in the audience want to be heard? You could just state your name for everyone here.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Vincent Goldbeck, and I reside at 4280 Lakeville Drive in Canandaigua. And I last spoke to this issue during the July 20th town board meeting. For those who may not know, on August the 6th, the city of Canandaigua mayor and council approved the resolution supporting the effort to rename Squaw Island. Let me begin with a rhetorical question to ponder as we speak. Is there a greater purpose changing the name of the island to one that's more inclusive? One of the many things that have made this country great is our right for freedom of speech, to have differing opinions on issues and debate those issues, which are manifested here today. by those coming during the public hearing, put privilege of the floor, or those who sign petitions for their respective stance on issue. I respect that. However, let's not go down the rabbit hole of being misdirected by those who feel that the term squaw is not disrespectful. By referencing linguistic analysis of tribes other than those of the Haudenosaunee that the Seneca Nation is part of. Or that when these things were named 200 years ago, they didn't mean to offend anybody. Or it's a waste of time since everybody is still going to call it Squaw Island. I understand the history. We understand the history. Let's keep in perspective that you've heard representatives of the Seneca Nation and many others that the squaw is offensive. Today's discussion or debate is to focus on the respect that we should all give those who feel marginalized. The term squaw marginalizes Native Americans and marginalizes all women, regardless of the context. We as a community have embraced the Seneca culture around us. Absolutely, that is part of our history. Generations have called Canandaigua, a Seneca name, home, which was not far from the Haudenosaunee capital, Onondaga. But somehow some residents feel it's about themselves and lack the humility to understand that squaw was not a term used by the Seneca, who had been driven out of their homeland. Here, why the dichotomy? It's important to refresh everyone's memory today who the Haudenosaunee are. It's one of the oldest participatory democracies on earth, and provide an important structural model for the development of the United States Constitution. The Haudenosaunee women had great power in their clan, and were even the ones who first nominated their chiefs. The division of power between males and females among these natives were nearly equal. This begs the question of why years later, after the 1779 Sullivan Campaign, the authorities in the area would choose such a non-Seneca name for the island. It's evidence of possible disdain that they had of the Native Americans. Yet these same people had inspired our government's democratic structure, the Seneca, that we're proud of here in Canandaigua. It's named after that the Seneca name came with. This hurtful name has no place in our beloved town, the chosen spot in 2020 America. We must continue to move forward to correct those unfortunate mistakes in the past that we have the power to change. Why would we want to continue with the label that is sustained to our local history when the Haudenosaunee loved this land long before our ancestors? Let me finish one sentence here. Please consider what the greatest purpose is for all in your decision. And thank you for your courage and empathy by empowering the Seneca, standing alongside them and supporters to make this word change. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just want to make sure there's, I know, just want to make sure nobody else behind us. Okay, Jody. I don't think I can. I unmute?
I've unmuted. You hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I understand that Squaw Island is a part of many Canandaigua residents' personal histories, possibly going back several generations. Setting nostalgia aside, however, renaming Squaw Island will not harm anyone today. It will not affect or change our lives in any way. The town board now, however, has an opportunity to return in a small but meaningful way some dignity to the descendants of the Seneca village who were massacred, robbed of their land and their heritage. Today, the Native Americans believe squaw is derogatory, racist, and an insensitive term to refer to their females. I ask the board to take this opportunity to make a change and be, as Vince said, more inclusive. Thank you.
I know we got someone else that we should do.
Eli?
Eli, go ahead.
He's not muted, so.
Eli, would you like to be heard?
I didn't know I was not muted. I'm not trying to speak.
Okay. Thank you. You are not muted.
Okay, I'm muting now.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see anyone else who wishes to be heard. Town board members.
I guess I'd like to request, is it Diana? Diana Sherry. So.
Linda, because it's hard for them to hear.
I was requesting that Diana, she had provided for us the true history of the word squaw. And I was hoping that maybe you might read the second paragraph in your handout, because I feel like we did talk a lot about the history, but the point of the term being offensive wasn't really brought out, but it's front and center right in that one. So would you like to read it, or do you?
Well, actually, I handed it there now.
Oh, okay, Martin, would you like to read that
Would you like me to come up?
paragraph?
Everybody hear me? Everybody hear me? Yes, it's obvious. To call a woman a squaw is disrespectful. Kathy and I spent about a half an hour, 40 minutes going back and forth about this discussion. I never called you woman, did I? I called you by your name. It's an obvious point. We don't call people that we don't know woman. There's no women on Squaw Island. It's a place. It's a noun. It's just a name of an island.
But Martin, are you able to read that paragraph from the thing that you handed out?
I've already read it many times.
Oh, I meant to enter it into the record.
You may do that, if it's that important to you. Go ahead. It basically says, don't call people woman. But you wouldn't call a squaw. But there's no squaws on Squaw Island. It's an empty place. There's seagulls there. Nobody's allowed to go there. It's a noun. It's a place. It's part of our history. You guys are conflating the argument.
Thank you, Martin.
Did you want to read it?
So,
The part that I was trying to bring out was it's true history of the word squaw, and the man who wrote it, who is a linguist, starts his letter with, first, let me say, I have never disputed the fact that the term is offensive, as claimed by somebody else, citing an AP story. I've always tried to emphasize that squaw is now generally considered disparaging, as current dictionaries will rightly indicate. Everyone would regard its use to refer to a Native American woman as demeaning or colossally ignorant. Though it should be noted that terms like squaw bread and squaw dance are still pretty widely used in Indian country. So what I was trying to bring out was that the article, while it did talk about squaw quite a bit as a historical word, it was also talking about the current vernacular, which is something that I looked into. I looked at 3 different dictionaries and found them to all say very clearly that squaw is an insult. And so I feel like what we're doing here is we in this area really honor our Indian heritage. And by doing so with a word that is so fraught with meaning that could be negative, I feel like we're not honoring them as we would hope we would. So one of the things that made the change for me was listening to what people were saying. And I understand that people are suffering from the change. Change is hard, change is lost, and they aren't sure they really want to do this. But I feel like this is a gift that we have as a town board to do the right thing, to allow the Native Americans who we think we're honoring by calling it Squaw Island to really be honored by a name of their choosing. And for the rest of us, maybe people will still call it Squaw Island, or the island that formerly was called Squaw Island. But I feel like it's a simple thing for us to absorb when the Native American women have absorbed so many abuses over history. So I will be voting in favor of changing the name.
Anyone else from the town board want to be heard?
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments if I could, please. Can everybody hear me? I can't tell. Okay. Like everyone else on the board and probably in the audience that spent a lot of time looking up information in regard to SQA, the definition, and so on and so forth. And come 3 weeks from today, we'll have lived in the area starting our 44th year. And I can honestly say in all that time, you know, I've never heard anybody use Squaw Island and tell me his derogatory name. And I had no idea it was until Mr. Randolph sent out the information to us in that regard. It seems so that anything that I looked up, it said that it was information that was derived mainly through the news and things like that. I looked up to see when World Peak, I'm not saying that properly, started, because that's one that puts a lot of information out there, and that's one that I also looked at to identify it. And they started on January 15th of 2001. And so I don't know if they were responsible for changing in the dictionary or not, but I had no idea, I can honestly say that the number of years I've lived here that I've ever heard any derogatory name given to Squaw when they're talking about Squaw Island. So that's my comments in that regard. And the one thing about it is too, that the board is not going to be voting the name change. They're just going to make a suggestion one way or the other if they move it forward to let the state and the federal government make the determination. And it would be nice if we could have some input from the local individuals, both pro and con, because we got the ones that are ready for the name change and others that are questioning it, if they could serve on the committee to discuss it before any final decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Jared?
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who's spoken tonight, both here in person and also online. I am concerned going forward, as Dr. Witt shared that there, after this, if this goes forward, that there's no public comment period for people to share their ideas. I also worry myself about the history of words and how the history of words can change. I think recently, during little anecdotal, during the last college football season, there was a congressional candidate who was ready to completely destroy the careers of some Navy midshipmen and Army cadets for playing an innocent game on national TV because there was somebody at some point at one time that said that that game was was part of a racist sign. So sometimes words and other things can be taken and hijacked in different ways. I also, there is a period of war on both sides, and I always I get concerned when people talk about how Sullivan went and wiped out the community here, but there was war and bloodshed and brutality on both sides throughout this whole thing, not just between the colonists and other Europeans and the natives, between the natives themselves. So this wasn't a glossed over period of just of one-sided conflict. My concern is going forward is not knowing what the name is going to be. I know it was proposed and suggested. I also know it was suggested last time that we try to find the original name of the island. I would feel much more comfortable supporting a resolution going forward if we knew what that original name was. If it's a Haudenosaunee name, if it's, another name of someone who predated them, we don't, what is it and what would that name be? Is something that I would like to know going forward. And also the last thing is all of us have respectfully debated this back and forth with each other, with ourselves, with people that we know. It's also important to remember that, that we represent the people of this town, and that's something that I take seriously and have, I've wrestled with this since the last meeting. And I appreciate everybody who shared their thoughts, board members and the public as well as we go forward with this.
Thanks, Jared. This is very hard to speak into this microphone, but I'll try. Like all of us here, I've had many sleepless nights in the last couple of weeks. When I first heard about this, I was absolutely opposed to it, and I have gone back and forth from the beginning. I'm not sure what prompted it, but it's here, and it's something we have to deal with. And I did a lot of research on my own. I came across the articles that you're referring to. I came across the original research about Algonquin and the terminology. Then I came across an article that said, regardless of what it means or meant, or how it was used or how it was meant to be used, it is now an offensive word to those people whose word it is. That's to me the most important thing. It's not that we're using a word, and words change, meanings change. And it's not to wipe out the history of it, it's to do something, for lack of a better word, to show respect, kindness, understanding. It's not meant to say that anyone ever meant it in a bad way. I don't think anybody ever did. Those are words we used in my Catholic grammar school. We used the word squaw. We wouldn't have been able to say it if we ever thought it was something, a bad word. So I don't think that's, in my opinion, part of this debate, or at least as far as I'm concerned. But when I spoke to a woman by the name of, a friend of mine is a teacher of First Nations children in Onondaga County, and I reached out to her because we've spoken about the issues facing those children many, many times. And I asked her to put me in contact with someone who really would know what this word meant to local Native American communities, not any, I wanted to know. And I spoke with a person by the name of Frida Jacques, and she might not even want her name used. And the woman was practically in tears speaking to me. And my eyes were opened. I felt that I could do something for her that might mean something to her, not to punish the people who use that word over the course of the history of the word. But she wouldn't even say the word, it was so offensive, and said to her. And she just said, I know what island you're talking about, and that island, thank goodness, the name needs to be changed. And well, I was really caught off guard by that, because to me, it was such an innocuous word for so long. And I really wish the subject had never come up, and it would have been much easier for me to go on in my life thinking this is an innocuous word. But it's here and it's in front of me. And I thought of other words and how words' meanings have changed over time. I've said this to Martin, and if I say this word and it sounds offensive to you, it proves my point. But I'm a lawyer and I'm not afraid to use my words. So my father's name was Richard, and he was always known as Dick. And if I say that word to you, and depending on how old you are, that word is not offensive and not never meant to be offensive to his parents and generations ahead. But if that island was named Dick Island, would we be having this discussion? I don't know. I really don't. And I think we would have maybe the same discussion. It's not a bad word. It doesn't mean a bad word. But if we can help the very people who are offended by this by giving them a gift, and that sort of trivializes it, because who are we to give them a gift of land that they were living on? But if we can say to them, what you're saying is meaningful, and I understand that it's hurtful to you, not that not any other Native American community. I know it's not a popular position, and I've thought about it over and over. Part of me says it's not our job, and I'm sitting here reading the documentation that Mr. Witt was talking about as well, how the name change happens. What we do here today is not the end of it, as you all know. The name changes are put to the board that looks at many, many things, including the input from Indian tribes. So whatever name we come up with, the input of everyone is important. So I don't know what the answer is in terms of what the right way to do this. My conscience tells me that I should do the right thing in terms of what is right for me. Whether that's right for the town, that's a problem that we have all the time. What do I as town board supervisor do? go with my conscience or go with what the majority of the people want. But after speaking to Frida Jacques and seeing the letters that we have from other people, including the input from, so Frida told me to speak to Mr. Jemison. She wanted him to speak for her, and he has spoken loudly on this issue and says that it's time to change the name. Doesn't change the history. My suggestion, which keeps is meaningless, but I think we should use a real word for woman, the Seneca word for woman, which won't change anything in terms of history. If that's what we're really concerned about, can't we do that for the people who are telling us it's offensive to them? So up until this point now, I still don't know what I'm going to do. I think everyone here, we've all expressed different versions of the same concerns. I don't want to wipe out history. I love history. I'm a student of history myself. And I don't want anyone to think that I think they ever meant to be offensive in the use of the word. But this is now, and I was told that now this word means something. So if I, as one person, can do something to right a wrong and fix a hurt, I think I have an obligation to do that. So for me.
Motion to close the hearing?
No, that's what it is. Just a brief hearing.
Just a not a public hearing, so brief. Sorry. Seemed like it.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Right.
I don't think we're going to continue public hearing. We have, I'm sorry.
Reports, I think.
Yep, reports of town officials. Jim?
I've submitted my report. Any questions?
How's the water project going?
It's going good. I'll let Jerry speak about that.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Pam?
Would you like to be heard, Pam?
You have to.
Unmute yourself.
I did put the assessor's report in the agenda. I'm busy in the assessor's office with a lot of questions regarding next year's taxes and assessments. I'm just answering questions as they come along. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions.
Right, yeah, right. So, I mean, if we stay with the Laurel House and if Elizabeth. All right,
Thanks, Pam.
Lisa.
Uh,
Volunteers for doing that, or done. It's all the people.
Everyone mute themselves, please.
So, we'll see.
I think that was actually a count. wasn't it?
Jane, we heard you. Okay, next we have, what's that, Eric?
Yeah, hold on a minute.
Are you okay, Eric? Are you still there? Yeah. Oh,
I'm
there you
here. I submitted my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Doesn't appear anyone has any questions.
Great, thank you.
So just I submitted my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. Short report. The parks are continuing to get heavy use, so just make you aware of that. We've had a lot of interesting experiences this year with our Parks Department. I do need to request a couple of executive sessions. The one is on the agenda regarding land acquisition. I do also need to speak to you regarding the employment history of a particular person. So I'll be requesting executive sessions for the end of the meeting. And then, when I don't know if you want to talk about now, but as the budget officer, I've been working on the budget. We need to have a discussion of when we're going to hold a budget workshop to review the budget. Traditionally, I've submitted the budget to you for Labor Day weekend. That is still the plan, and the budget will be done. It's nowhere near done yet. Still a lot of fine tuning, but I could at least go through the worksheets with you if you wanted to participate in a possible budget workshop meeting, maybe in place or as part of the finance meeting this coming Thursday. So you're going to talk about that now or under Linda's report, whichever.
Well, that was, we skipped my report then afterwards, but we did talk about it at the finance meeting. Should we have our next finance meeting, which is this Thursday,
focus on the budget. And that would allow us to have that meeting without having to go through the trouble of having another public meeting. It's up to you guys, if that's a day that can work for you.
And we do have good news regarding the budget. The way I've got, still a lot of fine tuning to do, but before I present the tentative budget to you, but as of right now, we've got a flat tax rate at $1.03 for next year. I'm holding the line on the majority of the rates for all of our special districts. There's a few little ones that just need some tweaking and that sort of thing. And I need some numbers from our friends in Farmington for those special districts that are operated by the town of Farmington before I can finalize those numbers and stuff for you. But there's plenty of information where we could go through the worksheets on Thursday generally at a higher level and go through each of the funds, each of the 30 funds line by line in terms of the actual revenue and expenses, generally speaking, and then we could look at the line item detail a little bit later.
Does that work for everyone?
Tuesday?
Yeah.
8.
8 a.m. The finance meeting? Yes,
8
this
a.m.
Thursday. Supervisor, deputy supervisor, I won't bore anyone else with my comments. I have the reports are attached. If you have any questions. Okay. Any town board committees, finance? Anybody have anything else? Planning, Terry.
Yes. Sure wanted me to speak about the water project. So I will. Going very well. If you travel on Middle Cheshire Road, you'll see a lot of activity out there, especially starting tomorrow morning. But the line has been brought up from roughly where our pump station will be, almost to Middle Cheshire Road. Tomorrow you're going to start digging to bring it across the road and over to that road. We're connected. I guess the first tank, most of the pieces are in for the first tank, except for the bottom one, which is critically important to have. Also, it's here. It's here. Good. Let's see. Also, at our planning meeting last week, we talked about the inclusive playground that will be constructed over, near Outhouse Park. And at some point, there needs to be a meeting with all the concerned parties to make sure everybody's on the same page with what's going to happen with that park. The groundbreaking that had been talked about for this fall seems to be a little shaky right now. That they're not really ready. They may want to do some ceremonial thing, but that's why it's really necessary to get everybody together. MRB has put together a nice drawing of what the park should look like. Everybody agreed that it would probably work very well. Let's see. Kramer Road, we discussed having an information meeting with residents on Kramer Road. There's about 5 or 6, I think, residents there that have wanted water service. And since we are working in that area, it would be a good time to entertain that project.
Kramer.
What did I say?
Grandview.
Who's next? That's number 3. Grandview has water, they want sewer.
Okay, all right, sorry, Terry.
That's one that you just sent out a letter to the people, I guess, Doug, asking them in order to have a legal petition, it can't be what they already turned in and asked us about.
So I guess we thought the letter went out. It's in the process. There was some additional information, but basically it spells out that the cost for the average family would be somewhere around $150 a month to see if they still want us to move forward.
We'll see if they have the same response as people in Cheshire did last year. So anyway, that's one continuing. Auburn Trail, at some point we need to have various parties come in and speak to us, perhaps a workshop, or have Fisher Associates and MRB together with the town board to look at all there are a bunch of questions that need answering, how we want to see that trail come together. MRB is in the process of working with the city of Canandaigua to effect a crossing from the north side to the south side of the road. It would be just inside the city line. the city's easier to work with than the county, so crossing on the city side would be a benefit. Want to make pretty clear. Yeah, we need to, at some point, have a discussion about Silverdale Drive. There's at the end of Silverdale, there's an area that had been designated to be turnaround, a hammerhead in effect for snowplows to turn around in the winter. There was ruling is the right word, but a letter from somebody in the county dated back in 1998, I think, Jim, that said that that land was to be set aside and dedicated to the town. So Jim is working with Chris Nadler to see how much, or what we would have to do in order to affect that. We also had a discussion, we were asked to look at sidewalks and County 28 area and Parkside Drive area. The two apartment complexes out there, Trolley Square and the other one, can't remember its name offhand. Yeah. They have sidewalks in front of them, but they really don't go anyplace. They extend to the end of those properties. And we've had some people ask the town to do something about getting a sidewalk that would enable people to get over to 332, to go to Tops, to go to some of the other stores in that area. So we put together a comment back to the CIC, whose charter is to help effect solutions to the various questions asked in our comprehensive plan, supporting their effort to find a way to get some kind of sidewalk or some system for people to move from those areas to 332 in a safe manner. So that's about it.
Jerry?
Terry went so long, I forgot what I was going to say.
I know you're mesmerized.
I actually don't have anything for this. I don't have anything for this time.
Gary?
Yes, we got an attachment of attachment number 3 for when we had the last ordinance committee meeting. It explains in there everything that we covered at that time.
Okay, thanks. I don't think we have anyone from any of the other boards, committees. No? Okay. Okay, next we have our next privilege of the floor. If anyone would like to be heard, same 3-minute rule applies. See no hands. Okay, this is difficult for a left-hander. Let me move this way. Our first resolution is resolution number 2020-155, supporting a change of name for Squaw Island. So moved. I'll second. Any discussion?
No.
I have some things to say too.
I can start.
The way that the resolution is worded, they have a problem with some of the language in here. Again, everybody's position, both pro and con, of changing the name or not changing the name. I do think that there should be greater representation than just this board and the city council saying this name should be changed. I'm also a little bit concerned about the process that was outlined earlier by Dr. Witt, that there would be a comment period, but it didn't give me a warm feeling that comments on both sides would be entertained. And the recommendation of a name is by whom? I don't know that that should be the town's responsibility. The town does not have real jurisdiction in terms of naming that island. We don't have the responsibility, nor do we have the authority to do it. It really comes down to the state. And in a sense, I resent being put in a position to have to make a declaration on this when it's the state that really has that responsibility and authority. It should be up to them. If they want to change the name, change the name. Well, leave the name the same, leave the name the same. I understand the writings that were handed out tonight. I've done a lot of research, and all of you guys have done, and past month or so, and it is a very troubling issue. However, I feel my responsibility is to the people that put me in this chair. That's the residents of the town of Canandaigua. I don't know how many people that live in the town of Canandaigua signed on to this petition at change.org. No clue. But this isn't really just about the town of Canandaigua. It's the greater Canandaigua area. And I think there ought to be some mechanism for the greater Canandaigua area to speak to this rather than just our board and the city council. When it says in the first whereas here that the word is considered to be an ethnic and racial, the change in names clause to a more appropriate, given that the word squaw is considered to be an ethnic and racial slur, which is derogatory and demeaning. It isn't. I gotta go back there. A growing movement among community members to change the name. Among some community members, but not all community members. So I think the wording needs to be changed if some community members want to see this changed if we go ahead with this resolution. And Mr. Buck that spoke earlier tonight, for me, really, in the head, and that is that there should be more people involved in this discussion. It's not going to appear on the November ballot. It's too late for something like that to occur anyway. But I do think that the investigation and the possibility of changing that name should be open to a larger group than just us.
Yes, Linda. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was listening to this is when it came time for things like slavery and women's rights to vote, there were lots of people who were against those things. And those were still the right things to do. So it takes a lot of courage to be able to write what is a societal norm or a societal wrong. And I feel like I was really studying what was going on in the community, and I looked at change.org petition, and it never mentioned that word was offensive to Indians. It talked about the definition being very simple. It was a woman. And so when I looked at that, I thought, and I saw people write, well, if I had known what it meant to the people who were honoring, I wouldn't have signed it. So I saw that expressed by a few people as well. So it was confusing to me, and I know that there are people who strongly feel like we should not change that. But I look at this as this is a wrong that's occurred through no one's fault. And here we never really heard people use the term offensively, but it doesn't mean it hasn't been used, and it doesn't mean it doesn't offend the Indians. And so I look at it and say, if we're the process that has to work for the state to be able to right this wrong, we have to maybe have the courage to step up and do that.
I just wanted to say that.
Sorry.
I'll try to call that soon. Did you want to be heard?
Sorry.
Trying to cut me off. Do you want to be heard, Gary, before I?
When I made the comments earlier, what I was making the comments for is in regard to what is in this resolution. And I also had concern about what Terry mentioned about, growing movement and on that part of the resolution. And also, as I indicated before, I would like to see some more input. I know Mr. Randolph, as everyone knows, who's on the board, received emails. He indicated that, we were moving really fast on this. And so there's no real urgency, I don't think, but I don't want to drag it out either, one way or the other. But I don't think there's any real urgency to, move forward with this until we get the resolution properly worded. It's going to reflect the information from both sides.
So are you suggesting to table it for a month?
Yeah.
Or are you not?
Yes, yeah.
Well, we can.
Gary, your microphone is on. Turn your microphone.
I was reading our rules of procedure, and we can adjourn it technically. I do have a lot of problems with the wording as well of the resolution, but are we adjourning it for, if the majority of us are against it, I don't want to just adjourn it to put off our decision in the long run. Just my reading of the procedure now, and it goes to the point that maybe more time is needed, but what we do here is not the end of it one way or another. So whoever is proposing it can still propose the change. And the input, I'm reading right here, because local use and acceptance of a name is important to the board, not this board, the board who makes the decision, a proponent of a new name or name change is encouraged to provide evidence of support for the proposal, as well as evidence of any published or verbal usage of the proposed name, for example. That's just one paragraph. There's a whole long procedure. So I don't know. I also, you know, if we're going to get this right, our resolution says American Indian, which is not politically correct. And I know people are going to groan, but they're not Indian. Native American, First Nations, or Indigenous peoples. So it kind of puts us in a bad light if we're trying to do the right thing, which just goes to show how complicated it is, really, in my opinion. I think that's all I wanted to say on that. But the publication is available for anyone, which I can send out, which was sent to us who's interested in the procedure for changing a name. What we do here is only one part of it. And the wording of the resolution, again, I don't know that we would all be agreeing that is a growing. Speaking for myself, like Linda said, I do think at some point individuals may make decisions that everyone isn't okay with, but we don't even know what everyone is okay with. We know anecdotally, you know, however many people sign that petition, but so the wording of this resolution is incorrect. If it said something different, I could be more comfortable supporting it. So I would adjourn this to have a different resolution, but not if it's just prolonging the agony and we're all going to disagree anyway, I guess.
I would support adjourning it to make a resolution that is more in keeping with what people feel comfortable doing. I mean, but I'm not sure what that is.
That's the issue. My suggestion would have been, I'm not saying you would vote this way, but the resolution would say something, recognizing that local Native American populations have come to find the term squaw, which, as I said, they won't even say, an offensive or derogatory word. We would support a movement or something to change the name. Not that we take a position that everyone in the community agrees on that. You know my position on it. Well, maybe you don't. I said I wasn't sure, but I think as I'm talking it out, I'm in support of change. But I don't. The wording of this resolution doesn't sit well with me.
How would we what would be the process during the next month to get a different resolution put together?
Technically, we could get rid of this resolution altogether and come up with a new one, right? We could just put this off indefinitely and come up with a new one. That's correct, right?
Yes, I was just reading rule number 18 of the town board's rules of procedure. Any motion that was laid over the previous meeting must be voted on at the next regular scheduled meeting. So you really should, and it says it may not be laid over a second time. So I think you really should do something with this resolution. We can always bring a new resolution back next month, obviously with different wording.
I guess my question was the term laid over.
Yeah, so last month it was laid over at the request.
Right.
So it was laid over, so it needs to be acted upon at this meeting, according to number 18 of the town board's rules of procedures.
I think it's important that we get more, like was mentioned, more community, more involvement in that process. And also too, just to point out another thing, I mean, I've spoken with Algonquin friends who have no issue and don't see any issue with the name as it exists. And I've spoken with Seneca friends who feel the opposite. So even within the Native community, there's not a 100% agreement either.
Well, I think that brings the question of how do we resolve this? I mean, if there's one person that says it should be changed and 100 that say it shouldn't, but yet it seems morally, ethically that it should be changed, do you change it? Or do the 100 people that represent our community, do you give them the weight and say, okay, no, we'll go with what you said? I just have, how we resolve this is the thing that's bothering me. I mean, there's a growing movement to change it. There's a growing movement not to change it. How do you rationalize that? How do you?
Excuse me, I can answer that. I think it's a legal issue that Terry, you just summed up very well, and Linda brought it up first, and I think it's what you're all struggling with. The answer is you are the elected representatives of the people to do what is right, not what the people want you. This is a constitutional democracy. Elected leaders aren't proportional representatives. They are elected to do the right thing on behalf of the people. Linda made the point of slavery and women getting the right to vote. Those wouldn't have passed by majority vote, but it's a constitutional democracy, and by law, you're enacted to do what is right, not what everybody thinks is the most popular or the most people want.
I think we all understand that. I think we do want to take into account, though. Ultimately, I think that's what I said as well, is I have the responsibility to do what my conscience tells me to do. And obviously, a lot of 14th Amendment, a lot of those would not have passed for popular. But it's important to know and not have our resolutions say that's what is, if that's not the case.
Kathy, if I could suggest it, I hear exactly what all 5 of you are struggling with and the conversation that's taking place here tonight. But just a suggestion, maybe the board wants to make a motion to table this resolution indefinitely, and at the same time direct me to bring you back a new resolution that takes into account the conversation that took place here.
Oh, I thought that was what you said we couldn't do,
Yeah.
the layover.
Well, so you would be
Yeah, okay.
acting on this resolution.
Oh, by
You would
tabling it
tabling indefinitely.
Oh, perfect. That would be
That's
great.
what I'm.
So that is an action that could be taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 3 actions. Yes, no, or table indefinitely. Correct. I always thought that it had to be acted on up or down, but.
Well, it
No.
says action. It doesn't define it, but you really have 3 actions. So you could table it indefinitely, which means it's not coming back. And if you want to direct me to bring you a new resolution, you can do that either as part of it or not, or whatever.
Question is under debate. No motion may be received except a motion to amend the question, which we were talking about, to put the question, to postpone it indefinitely, which we're talking about, to adjourn to a specific day, to lay it on the table, to commit it to committee, etc., or a motion to adjourn the board. So I'm going to make a motion to postpone it indefinitely. And is it a separate motion to ask you to come back? So with that understanding, I'm going to make a motion to postpone it indefinitely. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now I'm going to make a motion to direct to come back with a resolution that reflects the discussion that we've had here. To direct it to be the discussion on that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
All right.
I'll go to the easy stuff.
Okay, if everyone's okay with it, we have Greg Firster, and I think we have Emily still on the line, although she had another meeting. This pertains to DeMarco applying for tax. The resolution number 2020-181, I was speaking to Greg earlier, and he agreed to be here in case anybody had any questions. So if it's all right with everyone, I'd like to go out of order and take that resolution, which is 2020-181, supporting DeMarco Group application to the Office of Homes and Community Renewal 2020 multifamily housing. Okay, I had a lot of questions. I don't know if anybody else did, but does anybody want to discuss this matter?
Yeah, can somebody just like give the simple summary of what this is? Is it just saying, hey, we really like them to be able to complete it?
So Emily or Greg, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Just let everyone know who you are.
Great. So my name is Greg Furster, and I'm representing the DeMarco Group, who owns Creekview Apartments Phase 1. We are proposing to develop Creekview Apartments Phase 2 using what's called low-income housing tax credits. We have to identify one of the 6 state goals that HCR, Homes and Community Renewal, the agency that provides the tax credits, we have to prove that we are achieving a state goal. And one of the state goals that we feel that we achieve is community revitalization. And one of the things that helps us support that goal is a resolution from the town board, really just kind of putting their support behind this particular project, not unlike what you did for Creekview Apartments Phase 1. So the information that you see in front of you is really taken from our proposal summary that we'll be providing the state. So it really is putting the full weight and support of the town behind this application, which really does weigh into the state's decision whether they award this project low-income housing tax credits.
And so if I can ask, which I was not present when initially the Creekview was approved and the zoning was approved. So I have probably more questions than you guys people are here. But so as I understood it then and now, the different phases were already decided. This is just seeking the tax credits through this application to help you keep costs down, basically. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, yeah. It's really not necessarily to keep costs down, more as it is to keep rents at a lower rent. So there is less long-term debt service on it. It still costs the same to run a 96-unit apartment community, but what this program does, it keeps permanent debt at a lower amount. Therefore, we can reduce the rents and then have people that are income qualified at 60 and 50% of the area median income pay for these rents, which are somewhere between, on a 1-bedroom, it's about $550, and on a 3-bedroom, I think it's around $875. So these are affordable rents for working people.
So this was what was already approved in theory for this phase, so to speak, the type of housing previously, and now you're moving forward with developing it and seeking the money to do so.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Anyone else have any questions on that?
So will this happen again when we go to phase 3? Because you mentioned 3 and 4, I wasn't on the board at that time either. So when phase 3 comes up, is this the whole process again for phase 3?
Right. That is correct. We have proposed and we have preliminary site plan approval, well, for 4 phases, and we built 1, and now we have final site plan approval for phase 2. And so the 3rd phase, we will probably propose another phase of affordable housing. The 4th phase has been earmarked for market housing, for market rate housing. But as you folks know, if the market changes and there's no more need for affordable housing, then maybe the last 2 phases will be market rate. Or if it goes the other way, there's more need for a safe, decent, affordable housing, then maybe all 4 phases might be affordable. So each phase stands on its own in terms of the market study.
Now, is phase 1 been completed?
Yeah.
All the way completed?
Yes. A year ago, we moved in July. We were 100% occupied and continue to be so. And we have nearly 100 people on the waiting list.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, of course.
Just mention too real quick, I mean, as we worked with this developer, Terry, I know you were on the board, and Linda, we had a bit of a water problem on this side of town and not being able to get adequate water pressures to the residents of the town of Canandaigua, in particular around 364 Poplar Beach and that whole area. And working with the developer in this project, we were actually able to run a new water line, thanks in large part to work that this developer did associated with this, as well as a grant that we received through Senator Helming's office in order to fix that problem. And that is no longer a problem nowadays in the town of Canandaigua on that east side. We have adequate water pressure. We're actually in a very good position now where we can sell water to the town of Orem or to the town of Hopewell if needed. And that really wouldn't have been possible without this project in phase 1 and all of the work that was done in partnership with DeMarco.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Anyone else want to be heard? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks again. Oh, they're gone. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Appreciate it. Thank
Oh, there
you.
you are. It's like the Brady Bunch. Everybody keeps moving around. Sorry. Resolution number 2020-163. Acceptance of monthly financial reports.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-164, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by town manager. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-165, closing of capital project for Woolhouse, Rossier, Water District Extension, etc. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-166, authorization to transfer fund balance to the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District Capital Improvement Project.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-167, acceptance of Distributed Technology Group's proposal, etc. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-168, authorization to surplus highway equipment. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-169, request for New York State DOT to conduct a speed study on Wells Curtis Road.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-170, accepting dedication of a sidewalk easement in the Fox Ridge subdivision phase 5B2. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-171, accepting dedication of a portion of Lake Hill Drive in the Lakeside Estates subdivision.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question on that in regard to the attachment. The inspection form on August 4th. I don't know if Jim can answer it or not. They didn't check anything if they had any deficiencies or no deficiencies. But on the 5th, they indicated that they had some items there that they had marked as defective or deficient, I should say.
Yeah, they were all resolved.
And then the letter of August 5th took care of all of that? Right. Okay. That was one in one day?
Yeah, it was simple stuff.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-172, public interest order pursuant to New York State Town Law, Section 202B, etc. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-173, abolishment of the part-time clerk to town justice position.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-174, abolishment of the full-time zoning inspector position. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-175, adoption of records management retention and disposition schedule. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-176, acceptance of Bonadillo and Company's audit report for the town court for fiscal year 2019. Any discussion?
I do have one question. I don't have a page number in front of me and my Chromebook's slow scrolling down there. There was a note written by the justices that they were not aware and weren't able to be there at the audit time. Is that normal? Is that something to be, I don't know, just curious about that? No, added in there.
So the auditors will be here to actually present the town audit as well as the town clerk and the town justice audit to you at a later date. They had reached out, in their opinion, to the justices to provide an opportunity to go over. And in their opinion, not mine, in their opinion, the justices decided not to take advantage of that opportunity.
Okay. Save that question for later. All right.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-177, approving agreement between Town of Canandaigua and Cheshire Fire Department for the provision of fuel and vehicle maintenance and authorizing town manager to execute said agreement on behalf of the town. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-178, setting a public hearing on the draft natural resources inventory update and seeker intent to declare lead agency. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2020-179, updated retainer letter for continuation of representation by Sheriff Law, PC, in the case. Finger Lakes Railway. Discussion? Oops, sorry.
Is this going to go any place?
Supposedly, from what I understand, it was moving forward. The Finger Lakes Railway had some new council that needed some time to get up to speed, but that supposedly they were nearing some sort of a agreement, that it was getting close. That's what I was told.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Doug, you wanted to wait till after executive session? So we'll consider 2020-180 after executive session. We've handled 2020-181. If there's no objection, I'd like to block 2020-182, 183, 184, and 185.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have approval of town board meeting minutes on July 20th, 2020.
Second.
Questions?
I think it's too close to the speaker. Sorry.
Any requests? Okay. Any requests to amend or any corrections to be made? Any, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have payment of the bills.
Utility abstract dated August 10th, 2020, totaling $4,828.70. The general fund, $3,352.23. Water districts, $1,476.47. The abstract dated August 10th, 2020, totaling $648,204.21. Total report is 304. Did I say three?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. General fund, $167,772.77. Highway fund, $38,170.15. Capital projects, $374,443.74. The drainage districts, $373.62. The lighting districts, $1,035.35. Water districts, $50,908.58. Trust and agency, $16,000.
So moved.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have our next privilege of the floor. If anyone wants to be heard? Yes.
I just wanted to thank all of you. You would pick up the struggles as you were discussing what was an offensive word to some and to some not. You could pick up the individual struggles that you were having. And I also found it encouraging that Kathy questioned the wording on the resolution because some of those words might have been offensive to somebody else. So I think town board did an excellent job. Thank you.
Appreciate that. All the business and our last privilege of the floor, we just had one. Okay, at this time, do we have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just remember, we will have that one resolution at the conclusion of the executive session.
Hello. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did raise my hand and nobody seemed to recognize me.
Okay, Michael, we can't see you, so if you raise your hand.
Your video is on.
Oh, you raised your virtual hand. Okay, sorry. I did not see that up in the left-hand corner. I'm aware. My site.
Yeah, apparently nobody is monitoring the chat.
Right.
And on there you would see if somebody raised their hands to speak.
It comes up in your little box next to you, but I didn't see it, so I apologize. But would you like to be heard? Ms. June, we can hear you on privilege of the floor if you want to be heard. Same 3-minute limit as everyone else.
Okay, thank you. For those who mentioned that they would like to hear more input from the community, like in a public hearing, Canandaigua Chronicles has over 2,000 comments from people in the community, people who used to live in the community, and people who live in both the city, the town, and villages in the area. Now, I believe Jared mentioned something about the Algonquin. The Algonquin are primarily a Canadian Indian tribe, and so I don't understand what impact their understanding of the word squaw would be when you have a letter from the Seneca president saying that this word is offensive. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Is anybody else before I? Now we'll move into executive session, so. Just so you know, only the town board and those, do I need to invite anybody else?
No, just town attorney.